So I want to begin today with a little metaphor, I guess, or a little analogy. Just kind of focus on this, listen to this for just a second, and tell me what this is referring to. There's an event in the lives of many people in our culture where this happens, and I'm going to describe it and you tell me what that event is. Okay? So this first one there, I'm going to explain a couple things. The first one goes like this. Life is like a river, and most people jump on the river of life without ever deciding where they want to end up. So in a short period of time, they get caught up in the current events, current fears, current challenges. They merely go with the flow. They become a part of the mass of people. You read this then? Good for you. They become a part of the mass of people who are directed by the environment instead of by their own values. As a result, they feel out of control. They remain in this unconscious state until one day the sound of raging waters awakens them and they discover they're 5 feet from Niagara Falls in a boat with no oars. At this point, all they can say is, "Oh, shoot." Something like that. But by then, it's too late. They're going to take a fall. Sometimes it's an emotional fall. Sometimes it's a physical fall. For example, some disease crept up to poor health behaviors, health choices. Sometimes it's a financial fall. It's likely that whatever challenges you have in your life currently could have been avoided by some better decisions upstream. The best choice upstream would have been planning ahead to flow into another river and sticking to that course. The other scenario, you've heard of the people who climb this ladder of success. They're climbing up the ladder of success, trying to get to the top and make, whether it's business or in their culture or, being socially at the top or whatever. They're climbing up this ladder, and they get to the top of this ladder and they realize at some point that this ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. What do we describe this event that people have when they're either, oh my goodness, here's a Niagara Falls, and there's nothing I can do about it now, or they're at the top of the ladder and crud. What do we call that? Midlife crisis, right? Now, most of us in here are still pretty young. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, I had this event happen to me where I was jogging. I remember exactly where I was. I went on it was about a 6 or 7 mile jog just from my house one day, and I remember I was jogging, and it was about the last mile. I was coming home, and we all have conversations, but sometimes these conversations that I have seems like there's somebody else in there. And this happened this time, where I had this thought that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And it started out sounding like this. It went, and I'm not one who swears, but this is how it sounded in my head. I never really, I don't know when I intentionally sworn at somebody or about anything, but this is what it sounded like to me. It went, damn. And I went, why did I just say that? and then the next thought in my head was, this is your life that you're living. And I went, we had this conversation. Of course it's my life, and I've got about a quarter mile to go. Just leave me alone. And this voice said, no, this is your life. I said, what do you mean it's my life? I know it's my life. And the voice said, or my conscience or whatever said, no, this is your life. It's not anybody else's. Nor can anyone else live your life. And if you spend the rest of your life, you're going to be around 80 more years. It's kind of, I'm planning to live a long time. If you're planning to live a long time and you don't live how you choose to live, then by default, you live how everyone else wants you to live. Bless you. And I thought, oh, of course I'm living how I want, aren't I? And at the time, I was going into business management, and it was okay. And I was working at a bank, which was not okay. I was and I was just graduating in psychology, or excuse me, in business management, but I didn't see a direction that was going to lead me. And every class that I went to in business management, I'd sit there going, I can't wait till this class gets over. It wasn't alive for me. And my job at the bank was just, okay, it's a job. I got to go there. And I saw people who had been working there for 30 years. And and I'm not being critical about people in banking. They were wonderful people. Some of my best friends are still are the people with whom I worked 25 years ago. But I saw the way they were living, and I said, that's not me. It's okay that it's them, but it wasn't me. And I'd never really thought about that before, that, you know, if I don't choose where I'm going to go, then I'm not going to go where I want to be. That sounds like Alice in Wonderland. Do you know what I'm saying? If I don't start making decisions about where I want to go, then the river's going to send me where, you know, your coach thinks you're good at this, you should do this. Your parents think, well, you're sure good at math, you should be this. Your girlfriends say, oh, you should be doing this. All of these people are saying, this is where you should be going. And I thought, and that little voice said, they're not going to take you where, they don't care. Nobody's going to be in here for the next 80 years. Nobody's going to be in this form for the next 80 years except you. Nobody will be able to enjoy or hate whatever happens to you for the next 80 years. And what you choose is what you're going to get. And it was then that I went, oh my gosh. That's why I said, damn. Because I saw that the direction that I was going in was going to be a nightmare if I stayed there. For me, and I'm happy that other people work in banks. And I'm happy that people are in business management, but I thought, that's not where I'm supposed to be. That's not what's going to make me the most happy. And so I started, at the time I was reading a lot of books. Tony Robbins was one of them. I was reading a lot of different authors, and I really felt like, you know, I need to get in touch with what I really want to do and be in my life, so that every day I wake up and go, yes, instead of, ugh, it's Monday, ugh, or finally it's Friday. I don't want that. I want every day to be, yes, I get to do this today. And so I started going through this process that I'm going to take you through that kind of moves us into our own river. It moves us into the river that is going in the direction that is according to our highest values, according to our most treasured truths. And if you don't do this, then you'll never find the river. If you don't go through this process, you'll never find the river. And it's one of the coolest things that I've ever done and has made more difference as far as bigger picture stuff than anything else that I've ever done. And I'm not being, it has nothing to do with religion or any philosophy or anything like that. It has to do with my own soul, my spirit, my being, my sense of who I am. It's very unusual where we take the time to look inside and go, what is in there? Because we're so busy doing out here stuff. I want to tell you about, there's a principle that I really like. Let's see. I should erase that. There's this principle that I really like. It comes from India. But I've heard it in Buddhism as well. This principle is called Dharma, is how it's pronounced, I guess. Dharma. Has anyone ever heard of this word? What does it mean? Anyone know what it means? I want to give you, there's a lot of definitions for this. We write about this in the book, but there's a lot of definitions of this. But the one that I like the most and made the absolute, and it really just like lights clicking in my head, yes, this is good. The idea of Dharma is every one of us, every single one of us is part of, how many people are in the world today? 6.5 billion? Right? So if we imagine that there are 6.5 billion, and including everyone who's ever lived, parts to this big puzzle. We're all just part of one enormous puzzle. Okay? And you are this piece right here. Let's say that this is the puzzle right here, between here and here, 6.5 billion, plus everyone who's ever lived, everyone who will live, in this little square right here. Can you picture that? So Mike's puzzle piece is right here. Hannah's is over here. David's is over here. And the idea is Mary Kay's is over here right on the edge. That's where she lives. Right? And the idea here is, which I just love, is Mike's piece is different from everybody else's. And it's not supposed to be the same as anybody else's. But when we try to live according to somebody else's puzzle piece, we don't get true satisfaction. We don't get real happiness. But when we live according to our piece, that's part of the whole, obviously, but it's an individual piece. When we live according to our piece, that is when we get real satisfaction in life. That's when we get real self-actualization. That's when we get real inner peace. When what we do is in line with our peace. And it's unlike everybody else's. We're not the same in this respect. We are all entirely different, nor should we try to be like anyone else. I wouldn't want anyone to be like me. Nor do I want to be like anyone else. Now, we can still learn from people and, follow their successes, But as soon as I start being like what my coaches tell me I should be, that's trying to make me be another piece. When I start being like my girlfriends and my parents and my other people, as good, as well-intentioned as they are and as, you know, well-meaning as they are, I'm not living according to my piece then, and I don't get the real satisfaction of life. Does that make sense? I just love that idea. It's one of the first things when I started going, man, who am I? What am I about here? What am I really about? You know, people have always told, well, here's who you are. But I've never really gone inside and went, who really am I? I mean, why am I here? And until I did, I really was just kind of, okay, here's this cool river, feels fun. And until I did that, finally I found, this is my river way over here. And this is better. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? So, to start this off, we have to have a couple beliefs. We have to have some, and when I say beliefs, I mean feelings of surety about something. Not, okay, I have to believe in something, but a belief is a feeling of surety about something. And we have to have, there's two beliefs that will drive everything you do to find your river or to find your puzzle piece. And the first one is this. The first belief is, I can change. Sounds obvious. And I'll add one thing to that. I can change now. I know plenty of people who don't believe this. Oh, there's nothing I can do about where I am. I'm stuck. I'm whatever. And they're one of the guys I worked with at the bank, he'd been working at this bank for 30 years. Excuse me, he'd been working there for 20 years, and I'm not being critical of this, but it was just such an obvious not believing this. He was making about $30,000 a year, and he had a family of 7 or 8 kids. And he was the nicest guy. He was just one of the most wonderful people I've ever met. But I said, well, why don't you do something else? And his thought was, or his response was, I can't. I can't leave this. I can't afford to leave this security blanket of this insurance that's, if something goes wrong with any of my kids, we won't be covered, and then I won't be able to cover it at all kind of idea. He was stuck. Now that's kind of in a financial thing, but I know plenty of people who say, oh no, there's nothing I can do about the fact that I'm angry or a lot, or there's nothing I can do about the fact that I'm, you know, in this particular culture or whatever. There's nothing, that's who I am. That's who I am. If we want to find our own, and I'm not saying you've got to change, but we have to have the belief that we can. No matter where we are, we can make a change. We can do things differently. The second belief is this change is up to me. Ain't nobody else cares about what's going on for you. And what I mean by that, certainly, I'm sure your mom really loves you a lot, but your mom's not in here. Your mom's got your mom's life to live. There's nobody else that can do this for you. And if you don't decide to do this, then you get by default the river that goes to wherever. That's not the one that's designed for you. Living here as long as I have, I've seen this over and over again, where people, I can think of one really good friend of mine who, he's now 52, and at one point he said, we both worked back at the bank, and I hate to go back to that experience, but it was just so obvious. I've seen over the years how this has unfolded, where he said, I can't go back to school. Because we were all thinking, should we go back to school? And he didn't even want to go to college. He'd got a degree or finished high school, and he said, it's too hard to go to college. And the rest of us, we were all repossessing cars at the time, and we were all a bunch of repo guys. And we were all in school, but he wasn't. And we said, you know, come go to school. It'll help you. We didn't know if that was true or not, but we sensed that that was the right thing. And he said, no, I just can't. And he was no dumber than the rest of us. I mean, we were all the same level of, we were all athletes. We weren't jocks, or we weren't academics by any stretch. He was the same level of, he could have done it just as easily as any of the rest of us. But he said, no, I can't. In the time that we have, there's 3 or 4 of us who have continued connecting with each other over the years. He's been in probably 6 or 7 jobs, and he's no further along, if we're thinking of climbing a ladder, he's no further along than he was 25 years ago, because he said to himself, no, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. It's not worth it. And I think to myself so many times, that could have been me, and where would I be now? But I decided, when I went through this process, I decided, it's up to me, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it and watch what happens. Trust that I'll be supported. So we have to have these 2 beliefs to start with. Now, are there any questions about this so far? Any thoughts? Now, I want to make a statement that I think is accurate. Well, before I do that, let's for a second, I want you to imagine that this fist, this hand represents the things that I do every day, okay, my daily behaviors, okay? This hand represents the things that I value most, okay? So we got, this hand is my daily behaviors, the stuff that I do every single day, and this one, this is what I value. This is my highest principles, my highest values, the things that are most important to me. Now, there are many people who've written about this who say the extent to which our behaviors are distant from the way we value things is directly there's a direct relationship between that and the amount of stress we feel. As our behaviors go different than what we value, we naturally feel more stress. Now let's put that in use examples. Let's say that, well, I'm going to hold off on the examples. I just want to throw that out to you. What we're going to be about here in this next little while is trying to figure out what those things are that are most important to us. And some of you are probably thinking, well, of course, I know what it is. You'll be surprised how as soon as you start assessing through this process we're going to do, you'll discover things that you hadn't really thought, well, that is really the most important thing to me. And then you'll start to look and see, well, I'm not doing anything about that. My behaviors aren't in line at all with what is most important to me. And then we go, that explains why I'm hating things. Like, you know, my life sucks. And I'm not saying our lives suck. But very frequently, when we are not doing what we think is most important, when our behavior's over here, there's this is a deeper level of stress than just surface tension. I need to use, does anyone in here have kids? Do you have kids? Can I use you for a second?
Yeah.
Can you come up here?
Yeah.
Okay, Fatima, I want you to stand right here. I'm going to stand over here. I want everyone to kind of pretend for a second that you're Fatima, okay? And now I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and ask you to kind of analyze well, just tell me what you would think or what you would do. Okay, does everyone know what an I-beam is? Does everyone know what an I-beam in construction? Those big, you know, beams that go up and down. You put it on the ground, it looks like an I, or this way it's an I. Put it on its side, it looks like an H. But they call it an I-beam, right? And how wide, if you put it on the ground, how wide is an I-beam typically? So it's somewhere in that distance right there, right? Let's just say that it is. Okay. Now, for this story, pretend that you're Fatima, and I want you, Fatima, I'm going to put an I-beam, we're going to pretend all this. There's an I-beam that I'm going to put down between you and me. Okay? We're going to put it on the floor, and we're going to conserve space, but this I-beam happens to be about 120 feet long. Okay? I've got it on the floor, and all you have to do is step on the I-beam and walk across, and I have $50 that's all yours. Would you do it?
Okay.
Would you? No, you don't have to do it, but would you do it?
No.
You?
I confused. Can you explain more?
So you're standing there, and I've got an I-beam on the floor.
Okay.
And all you have to do is step on it. It's only about this high, and walk across.
Okay.
And I have $50 in my hand. As you walk across, the $50 is yours. Would you do it? You wouldn't? Why not? Okay, let's take this one step back then. If I have $50 in my hand, and all you have to do is walk over and get it, and it's yours, would you?
Maybe if you give me more, I can.
Okay. $500 then.
Walking.
Okay.
Okay. You would do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that I have $500 and now I have the I-beam, which is only this high, so all you have to do is walk along it. from you to me, $500, would you do it?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay. Would anyone not? Okay. Let's say that I have the ability to raise this I-beam to about 5 feet.
Okay.
And then I secure it over on my side. It's 120 feet apart. I secure it on my side. I secure it on your side so that it's sturdy. And all you have to do, I have the same $500. All you have to do is walk up the little ladder on that side, walk across at 5 feet, and $500 is yours. Would you do it?
No.
You wouldn't? Why not? It's too high?
Yeah, I think yeah.
Okay. Would anyone in here? How many of you would? Okay, everyone but Fatima. Anyone wouldn't at this level? 5 feet? Okay, so Fatima, what's your name again?
Lacey.
Lacey. So Fatima and Lacey wouldn't. So this is ruining my scenario. So
Well, the majority.
if we were, well, I'm still going to use you. But let's say, I'll ask the rest of the class this, but we'll use you in a second. I'll ask, let's say I take this I-beam to 2 stories high, 20-some feet, and I secure it on one end, secure it on the other, and you climb up the ladder. All you have to do is walk across. $500 is yours. How many of you still would go across the I-beam?
Is there a guide rope?
And you have to walk. No, it's just
Spikes, actually.
so fear factor without the tether.
So no safety.
No safety. Okay, so most everyone, so quite a few. How many of you changed your mind? How many said no, not at 20 feet? Okay, so several. Okay. For the sake of this scenario, I'm going to ask everybody, and we have to, I hope this isn't a sensitive thing to any of you, but I want us to imagine that the Twin Towers are still standing up in New York. Remember the ones that the idiots came and rammed into? Imagine that those are still standing. Okay, and those were about 120 feet apart, apparently. And let's say that we were able to shove the I-beam into one tower and bore it into the other. And so we take these big, and we put it in there. And so it's 120 feet across from one tower to the other. And I have $500. Each of you is over where Fatima is. I'm where I am. On the other tower, how many of you would come across for $500?
Can you butt scoot?
You have to walk.
No,
It's always windy up there, they said.
So hell no.
it's,
Okay.
I guarantee it's super windy.
Okay. So let's say I change that to $5 million.
I would be walking around.
How many say yes?
I'd sprint across that thing.
Some of you changed it. $5 million, you'd go for it.
The money's not worth my life.
If I had a base jumper's parachute,
Fatima, how many kids do you have? Okay, and what's your child's name?
Hussein.
Hossein?
Yeah.
It's a boy or a girl?
Boy.
So let's say that you're on that tower and I'm on this one, and for some reason, this weird reason, Hossein is on this side, and for some reason I'm holding him from falling on this side, but I'm losing my grip. Okay, so he might fall if I don't hold on to him. Would you walk across to try and save him?
Yeah.
You would? But you wouldn't go 5 feet in the air for $500? But you would for your son?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. Thanks for... Now, here's the thing. Every one of us has things, that we would cross that I-beam for. whether that's, in this case, people in our lives, or ways of being, what we would call values, that, yeah, if I could be this type of person, that would be worth going across the I-beam for. Okay? Now, next thing I want to do, I'd like you all to sit in your seats so that your back straight up and down. And put your pens down for a second. We're going to do something with our eyes closed for just a second. This will not be the same as the lemon one. So, please, let's see. Would you mind shutting that door really fast? This won't take very long, and do not fall asleep. I know some of us, as soon as we close our eyes, I'm crashing. Please stay awake with this. We're going to do just a really tiny guided imagery with this for just a second. I want you to just follow, use your imagination as vividly as you can. So everyone, keep your eyes closed. So we're going to go into our imagination. Just put yourself into your mind's eye. Kind of maybe if you want to picture a screen and you're watching yourself on that screen, or you can actually picture yourself doing this. But I want you to imagine yourself in your car. I want you to picture yourself sitting in your car, and notice what you're wearing, as you're sitting in your car, and you're driving in your car, and just kind of get a feel for how, your regular car driving feeling. You're just going along. And as you're driving in your car, I want you to imagine for a second that you're going to the funeral of someone who you love, someone who's recently passed away, someone who you have is a good friend of yours, but you're not overly sad that this person is leaving. It's just kind of a shared sorrow with you and plenty of other people that you're going to this person's funeral. So I want you to picture yourself driving up to the chapel or funeral parlor where this funeral is taking place. Picture yourself getting out of the car. Notice that you're now dressed much more nicely as you walk toward the building where the funeral is happening. And now picture yourself walking inside, the doors open, and you walk inside, and you see people who you know, some people who you don't know, inside this building. And as you walk inside the building, you notice there's flowers, and you notice there's organ music playing, and you feel the sense of sorrow that permeates the room for losing this special person. But you also sense the shared joy of having known this person that radiates in the hearts of the people there. So there's one room that's kind of the main room where everything's happening, and you go into the front of this room, and you see the casket of the person who has passed on, and you suddenly come face to face with yourself. This is your funeral. And all these people have come to honor you, to express feelings of love and appreciation for your life. As you take a seat and wait for the services to begin, you look at the program in your hand. There's going to be 4 speakers. The first speaker is from somebody from your family. Perhaps a mom or a dad, a brother or a sister, maybe a grandparent. These people have come from all over the country to attend. The second speaker is one of your best friends, someone who's going to give a sense of what you were as a person, what kind of a person you were. They're going to tell, because they probably knew you best of all. The third speaker is from your work, or maybe in your school, somebody who you knew. And the fourth person is somebody from your church or community organization where you've been involved in service. Now think deeply. What would you like each of these speakers to say about you and your life? What kind of son or daughter would you like their words to reflect? What kind of friend would you like to have others say you were? Were you there for others when they needed you? Did you care for them and trust them and have a deep respect for them? What would your best friend say about you at your own funeral? Or what would you like that person to say about you? What contributions would you like them to have said you made to other people's lives, to humanity, to the world? What achievements would you want them to remember? What would the person who doesn't know you very well, what would you want him or her to say about you? Now I'd like you to open your eyes. Just open your eyes, bring yourself back to this room. And now on your paper, just on a separate piece of paper, I want you to write down any impressions that you had while you were doing that. Just let your writing flow freely. Any impressions, any thoughts or ideas, any insights that you had, just let them gush onto the paper. While you're doing that, also, I want you to also put down on paper and let it just, you're brainstorming right now, let it just kind of come out free-flowing. I want you to write down anything that comes to your mind that would be something that you would cross the I-beam for, that would be worth crossing that I-beam to have or be or do, that would be of that much value. So go ahead and kind of put both of those together and let it just unload. Let it download onto your paper. Any impressions that you have. Wherever you are, just stop right there. Okay, now going back to your notes, I want you to write this down. This is sort of separate from your notes or included in there, but this is back to our outline or whatever. But I want to give you the only true definition of inner peace. There's a lot of definitions out there, but I really like this one. So I'd like you to all write this down. Inner peace can be defined this way. Inner peace is having harmony, balance, and consistency in our lives. Inner peace is having harmony, balance, and consistency in our lives. Then the next sentence, so period. We achieve inner peace. We achieve inner peace through the appropriate control of events. We achieve inner peace through the appropriate control of events and by living according to our values. We achieve inner peace through the appropriate control of events and by living according to our values. Now we can use this scenario. So here's my values, and here's my day-to-day activities. Now I want you to watch this. So inner peace is attained by, or inner peace is having balance, harmony, balance, and consistency in our lives, achieved through the appropriate control of events. Okay? Which one moved? The activities, right? My values didn't change. The things that I value most didn't change. Inner peace happens when what we do is in line with who we are. See, I'm absolutely convinced, if you understand, if you're absolutely clear on what you value most, no decision is difficult. Whether that be, the most mundane thing or the most moving thing. Decisions aren't difficult when we know what we value the most. Little story. We all know Ben Franklin, right? We've all heard of Ben Franklin. Has anyone not heard of Ben Franklin? One of the most amazing men that has ever lived on this continent anyway, and probably in all of history. If you read his history, he was just amazing. Well, when he was 27, he was living, I think he was living in Philadelphia at the time. He was working at a printing place, and he had this idea. He had a midlife crisis. He felt like he was a failure as a person at 27. Imagine that. And he kind of he said, I don't want to be this way. He kind of did the same thing that I went through, only I'm sure his was much more profound. And he asked himself two questions at that point. He said, this is not how I want to be. I sense that there's something better. And so he asked himself two questions. He asked himself, what's most important to me? And of these things, what can I do about it? So he kind of continued with that, what we said up there. What's most important to me, and what can I do about it? And he went about this process where he asked himself, what is most important to me? And he came up with what he called these 13 virtues. You can read about them in his autobiography. And what he did is he set about every week he figured out that there were 13 things that to him were the most important things. And then for the next, until he was 82, when he wrote his autobiography, he said in his autobiography, essentially, I believe I have achieved oneness with my values, or with I believe my activities are at one with my values. Which essentially what he was saying is, what I do every day is in perfect alignment with who I am. Now, what would Maslow call this person, Abraham Maslow? Yeah, self-actualized, self-realized. He felt like in his life that he was a complete person as far as he was concerned. And he taught this process, and I want to take you through this because it is just absolutely one of the greatest things that we can do with our own selves. So that we have some sense of, okay, what's my river like? What is this? What does my ladder look like? What is my puzzle piece supposed to look like? Don't write on this just yet. You guys are following along. Impressive. Good for you. Okay, so essentially, we've started this already. But what I would like you to do, on this page, on the left side it says values. It says, up at the top it says, what matters most to me in my life? What are the things for which I would cross the I-beam? So like, speaking of what Fatima did. What characteristics would I like to be remembered for at my own funeral? What is most important to me and what do I value most? What values, ideas, or principles have such great value that I would risk or even dedicate my life to the attainment of them? And every one of us has these. I don't care what philosophy or religion you assign yourself to. We all have values by which we live. This is an opportunity for us to kind of discover them. So kind of what I'd like you to do is, just for a few minutes, I'd like you to transfer from the page that you wrote that other stuff on to this left column. Just write down anything that came to your mind before when you were being, insightful, when you were brainstorming, the things that popped into your head as you were thinking about what would I cross the I-beam for, or what would I like people to say about me at my own funeral. So put those on this left side right now. Just take a minute and fill this up. Doesn't matter how many you have on there. What it does matter is that they're yours. And I say that emphatically. It matters that they're yours, not somebody else's that you don't necessarily agree with. I mean, if they are somebody else's, fine. As long as they feel like, yeah, this is really worth living my life for, or this is worth crossing the I-beam for, or this is what I would like somebody to say, this is the kind of person I was. So just let it unload onto the paper right now. Doesn't necessarily matter that you're doing anything about it. In fact, some of these that you might put down, you may be doing nothing about it. I remember when I was doing this, one of the things that I discovered is that I really love learning. That was one that I thought, yeah, I really like the idea that and I realized I really wasn't doing much of it. I was in school, But I don't think that's learning. I think that's a lot of memorizing. I wasn't doing any learning, and so that was when I started going about developing my own library. But I hadn't, up until that point, done anything really that was like, okay, there's my value, but may not be doing anything necessarily to bring myself in line with it at that point. That's okay. Still something you value. Okay, so just hold that for just a second. There's several phases to this, or several steps to this. This is the first. The second step to doing this is where we go to the right side, and we're going to put them in order of their priority to us. Now, let me ask you, why do you think it's important to know that one value is we esteem higher than another one? Why is that important to know? Can you think? Why do you think?
Making decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Let me give you one example of how that exactly worked for me. One of my values, as you probably know, has to do with my health. I have a really high, I value my health a lot because I really want to be able to do things when I'm 70 or 80. And I know that getting there, I want to be able to do things now. I want to do things 10 years from now. I want to be able to continue to be jogging, doing, the things that active people do. I don't want to spend my life needing somebody else's help to get around. Okay, that's one thing that I value. Another value that I have happens to be having a lot of fun. Okay, that's one thing that I value a lot. Risk-taking or enjoying myself or doing things that seem fun to me. That, for me, and I'm not saying this is what you should have, but that is one for me. Now, when I was teaching back in West Virginia, I had a lot of students who were really good friends, and just about, not every weekend, but just about every so often, they would check in with me and say, Mike, we're having a party on Friday. Do you want to come? And I had a pretty good idea of how those parties went. You can imagine, and probably what you could imagine is pretty accurate. They were pretty, and I thought, well, that would be a lot of fun. I also happen to value one of my highest values, and it wasn't when I was 23. It wasn't really high on my list of values, but it is now probably one of my top 3 is my relationship with my wife. I happen to really like that as it's highly prized right now. Now, if I have a higher, if my sense of, my value of having fun is higher than, so it's up here and my health and my relationship with my wife is down here, then what's likely my decision when they call me up and say, Mike, do you want to come to party with us? Yeah, it's an easy decision, right? Well, yeah, I'm going. If, on the other hand, and I'm not saying that this is how anyone's should be, it just happens to be how mine are. If how they really are is, at least for me right now, and back when I was teaching back east, is I valued my health and I valued my relationship with my wife higher than the value of having fun. And I would always say, and it wouldn't even be a tough decision, oh no, that's okay. I don't want to. I didn't have to squirm and, oh geez, they're going to think I'm not very nice for not coming to their parties. I just didn't. It was an easy decision. Think about this. If you're, so one of my values is risk-taking. The other, and then we'll use having fun, is also a value. But also my health is a value. If I have risk-taking as being a higher value than my health, and somebody calls me up and says, hey Mike, we're going skydiving tomorrow, or we're going to go ride our bikes off some cliffs. You know, we've been working on some mountain bike tricks. And my risk-taking value is higher than my health value. What is my easy answer when they say, do you want to come?
Yeah.
I'm there. It's an easy answer. I'm not saying that one is more. None of these things that we value for you is better. How do I say this? What you value has nothing to do with how anyone else should judge those. They should be entirely yours. And the order of them should be entirely yours as well. For me, when I didn't have a family, having fun was way up there. Risk-taking was way up there. My number one has always been inner peace. That's the number one, and I weigh everything that I do is, will that bring me inner peace? That's mine. I'm not saying that's how yours are. I also have one that says I want to be financially secure. It's not as high as inner peace. But what that does is exactly what you're saying. It makes it so that when I need to make a decision about something, all I have to do is go, well, where does that fall into line with my values? And making the decision is a lot easier. So what I want you to do for just a minute is take those that you put on there on the left side and decide which of those is your top ones. Now let me just make a quick comment here. Some of you might have some that are very religious or spiritual in nature. You don't have to be careful for this class if those are hugely powerful for you. So don't try to be, oh, I can't say that I really, you know, my relationship with God or my relationship with whatever. Don't be careful in here. I'm the only one who will see them, and I promise I will not make any judgments about them. So I want these to be for real, not, well, this is what Mike wants to see. Okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. everyone just kind of stop where you are now. So what I would like you to do for Thursday, because we're not quite done with this, there's just a little bit more that I want to add to this that really brings this to life for you. What I would like you to do by Thursday, everyone pay close attention, write this down so that you have this done by Thursday, is I want you to, one of the things that will happen between now and breakfast tomorrow is there will be more things that will come to you in your mind. You'll go, oh yeah, I didn't even think about it. Of course, that's something that I value also. So I want you to expand this to the level that you feel, and I'm not saying you have to add anything for my sake, but let your mind just kind of sit this in your subconscious mind for a little, and let, as you're not thinking about anything, the ideas will pop into your head. Oh yeah, that's something that I really, that's really important to me also, that I hadn't thought of. And so on Thursday, what I'd like you to do is come with this page pretty much filled out. There's no right number, but come with this page filled out so that you are pretty clear on the order of the things that are most important to you, and then we'll go through the next step of it, the final step, on Thursday, and I'll give you the assignment that goes along with this. Now, one quick comment about Thursday. We're going to be doing a relaxation, we're going to do a guided imagery that is not a relaxation exercise. So it's a little bit different. When you come, try to have gotten a nice rest the night before. Actually, we might do something to kind of quickly give us some life. But don't come with a lot of food on your stomach. You know, kind of be, don't be too hungry, but don't be also full where the instant you close your eyes, you're going to fall asleep. Because this is one where you can't fall asleep in. The one we're doing on Thursday. It's amazingly cool, but we can't fall asleep when we do it. Okay, see everyone. Have a great day.